is our Frontier opening bell. I am Bosin Omofaye, and this is how we're getting the fourth trading day of the week started. Of course, the biggest story today is the decision on interest rates, repo rate by the South African Reserve Bank that is expected to be out later today. How will the SARB or that, let's say, Jackie Agiango decide? That's the big news. But of course, not so good news this morning, overnight coming through about the explosions of gas explosions around the central business district in Johannesburg, with a scores of people already injured and the area being cordoned off. This is one bad news that's coming through this morning as we get today's market day started. We're watching that development very closely in Johannesburg, and we want to ask everyone to stay safe. And of course, we commiserate with those who have been injured in this very unfortunate incident that is still being investigated by the authorities. But let's move on to the markets. 0.01%. That's the balancing act yesterday for the Nigerian market. With MTN on one hand, then you've got Access Core, you've got Grego Power pushed down by 10% maximum. That's what you get on our market yesterday. That transaction on that power company, generation company, accounted for about 50%, about 4.9 billion of the total 10 billion naira that was done on the Nigerian market on Wednesday. On the news, just a few days ago, Grego Power's earnings for the first half of the year, a very bumper result. And of course, the company put in a whole lot more energy on the national grid. That's good news that investors took yesterday. So there's a bit of a balancing act between the banking sector and other gains in the consumer goods space, where you have Nigerian breweries up by roughly 4.5%. Let's leave it there. Let's see how today's trading day goes. Of course, Nigeria also did is bond auction for the month of July, which was overbought by 162.5%. Investors piled nearly 1 trillion into government bonds auction on Monday. The settlement was yesterday. So overnight, an interbank rate now jumped back to double digits. The BRVM up by 44 basis points, is pushing Nigerian market off the gain, a stable 202.94, but we were just cruising around 203 for the composite for the BRVM on Friday. There's been a softness since the start of the week. The EGX market down by 0.17%. The Nairobi stock market fell 1.18% to 111.63 as we see the market digesting a number of earnings and, of course, the political and social protests that we're seeing in Kenya as we speak on the back of higher taxes and fuel prices. The government in Nairobi has asked an agency to look into the fuel prices, by the way. And of course, you've got the GSE soft by 0.02% on Wednesday. Let's go on to the big stories for the East African continent today. Of course, the Kenyan authorities are looking at the fuel prices. How will President Ruto handle the higher taxes? And of course, the court decision around the Finance Act that's been suspended. The IMF is also reportedly looking into that closely because the latest Article 4 report on Kenya is just being released for the month of July by the International Monetary Fund. But good news from Ethiopia. Earlier this week on Monday, as the African Securities Exchanges Association and the UN Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA, signed a memorandum of understanding that will encourage partnership and cooperation between the two agencies to further develop the Africa's financial market development and integration. That's some good news that ASEA can use under the current AELP, the African Exchange Linkage Project. And Elon Musk's satellite data firm Starlink has now onboarded in Kenya. You can get a little nation, you can just download, you can do a whole lot more. And this is just a curtain raiser for the East African market from the world's billionaire Tesla CEO, Elon Musk. And Safaricom is looking at a 5G 595, roughly 600 new 5G sites in a battle with Airtel. It's all about 5G. We've got some of those companies doing a similar 5G rollout in Nigeria between Airtel and MTN, and Safaricom, the king of the telco market in Kenya, as well as Airtel. The Safaricom is posted. That's the story from Ethiopia, by the way. Ethiotel Telecoms posted a very bumper full-year earnings, which was announced earlier this week. The European Investment Bank promises to grow its investment portfolio in Tanzania, and we see that as good news for President Suluhu's administration, while the DR Congo has signed a $2 billion mining deal with the United Arab Emirates. That deal is huge and is currently being discussed. It's on the table. Let's touch on with West Africa. Moody's Investor Services, one of the world's top 3 rating agencies, yesterday released an Inside Africa report for a number of African countries, which of course include Nigeria, which says that the current political economic reforms of fuel subsidy removal and unifying the central bank exchange rates by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is credit positive for the country, but risky. It says that there's a risk of social unrest as far as the fuel subsidy removal is concerned, and the current hike in petrol prices that Nigeria is currently faced. The report is out there and you can just read that up. The bond option, which was done on Monday with the settlement done on Wednesday, 162.54% overbought. Market Street, it was quoting yesterday the Naira dollar at 860. And the I&E window reported at 793.7 to the American dollar, one of the highest levels we've seen the Naira on the street since the unification of central bank exchange rate was done back about a month ago. And Ghana's producer price inflation, what we call the PPI, came in softer by 29.9% from 30.3% in the month of May, while Woodside Energy says it postpones then Senegal's first oil delivery until the middle of next year. So we go to Southern Africa space, and of course that is disappointing and grim story about Johannesburg gas explosion, which is being described at least as a gas explosion at the moment, with scores of folks injured. That's the news South Africans are waking up to this morning. Is one pretty bad news. The rand, however, jumped on Wednesday as SA inflation dipped to 5.4% in June against 6.3% in May. All that ahead of the South Africa's Reserve Bank decision later today. Eskom has cancelled 11 billion rand deals around coal supply contract and what have you, because of a crackdown that continues on the utility giant regarding its operations and its activities. That deal is now being taken off the table. The IMF says there's no proposal for the creation of a common BRICS currency, as news came in that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not be attending the BRICS summit taking place next month in Johannesburg. And AFDB is considering giving Zambia between $100 and $150 million to support the country's budget. That's another support that President Hichilema can use after his debt deal about $6.3 billion with creditors just about 2 months ago, and initial funding that it got from the IMF as well. And Africa's biggest port, the port of Durban, is going to be partially privatized, and that will go to the ICTS of the Philippines. That is going to be a couple of years transaction there, and is expected to expand the port of Durban operations and, of course, help the local economy. Those are some of the headlines out of Southern Africa. Let's check in with the North African markets, with Egypt looking to resume LNG exports in autumn, according to the minister. The country's bank credit facilities increased by about $30 million last month. That's coming through from the Central Bank of Egypt, while Morocco has launched the first marine hatchery to boost the country's aquaculture sector. And finally, Tunisia exports about 32,500 tons of phosphate to Turkish markets. That's good news. Tunisia is also in the news this morning, getting some funding support from the African Development Bank Group, the AFDB, and that's some support that the President Said's administration could use. The Tunisian stock market has been moving up very strongly in recent weeks, holding around 9,000 level. Keep those numbers in mind as we say, have a very profitable business and market day from all of us here at Frontier Africa Reports. Bye for now.